We got it?
I think we got it.
All right.
Sorry, guys. Don't want to play with my hair. Okay. Today, I'd like to address the possibility with our new administration of the United States Environmental Protection Agency being defunded and the ramifications that would come with this. Many people discuss the negative effects this could have on climate change, and while I consider this a serious problem, I'd like to discuss a different yet arguably equal problem that the defunding of the EPA could bring. On January 12th of this year, the EPA created the policy to mitigate the exposure to bees from acutely toxic pesticide products. This policy was released a few days before Trump's inauguration, and so what do you think happened to the policy after this? It got completely swept under the rug and forgotten. But regardless of your feelings about defunding the EPA, I believe that this policy is extremely important to our lives and should be adjusted to an outright ban on harmful pesticides used in the United States. In order to show how important this policy is, I would like to first talk about why bees are so important, why and how these pesticides are hurting them, and what we can do to help the bees. First things first, a little bit of background information. According to the National Pesticide Information Center, around 2006, many beekeepers began reporting large colony losses where many adult honeybees disappeared in large numbers all at the same time. This report was the first report of colony collapse disorder. Colony collapse disorder, as defined by the EPA, is the phenomenon that occurs when the majority of worker bees in a colony disappear and leave behind their queen along with plenty of food. And while it is unknown what exactly causes this disorder, it has been linked to several factors, including exposure to insecticides. This insecticide being specifically those classified as neonicotinoids. Neonicotinoids are, as defined by the EPA, a relatively new class of insecticide that are chemically related to nicotine. Neonicotinoids include several different types of pesticides, such as those, as you can see on the screen, these are the three most commonly used in the world. And according to the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation, neonicotinoids are currently the most widely used group of insecticides in the world, comprising roughly 25% of the agrochemical market. These pesticides are used in a variety of methods by farmers, such as applying them to seed coats, soil drenches, sprays, direct injection into trees, and also adding them to irrigation water. Again, according to the Xerces Society, this variety of applications, along with their ability to be soluble in water and their lower toxicity to humans, are the primary reasons why these chemicals are so widely used. But while these chemicals are less toxic to humans and mammals, they are extremely lethal to invertebrates. Once these chemicals are used for crops, they get absorbed by a plant and affect the plant's pollen, nectar, and even its seeds. And this is how the bee comes to ingest that chemical through the plant's nectar. Compound Interest, a chemical research group, states, and I quote, "An insect does not need to ingest a great deal of neonicotinoid pesticide for it to exert its deadly effect. For comparison, the lethal dose for neonicotinoids is several orders of magnitude lower than for older insecticides, such as the controversial DDT." And according to phys.org, there is a clear relationship that neonicotinoids disrupt brain function, bee learning, and the ability to forage for food, thus causing the bee to die and ultimately contributing to colony collapse disorder. So I have a graph here, and this is the first graph right here on the right-hand side, or the left-hand side, I'm sorry, is from the Xerces Society for Invertebrate Conservation, showing the increase in neonicotinoid pesticide from 2006 to the present. And then this is a graph showing the increase in percent loss of bee colonies in the United States from 2006 to the present. Sorry. Okay. So clearly we can all see that there's a serious problem with these insecticides, but what has the EPA done to propose to mitigate the bees' exposure to them? The EPA has suggested that pesticides that contain neonicotinoids must have a label stating that the pesticide is harmful to bees. And the EPA policy states that the label should read, and I have it up here so you guys can follow along because it's kind of long and hard to understand, but it says, for foliar applications of this product to a crop where bees are under contract to pollinate that crop, foliar application of this product is prohibited to a crop from the onset of flowering until the flowering is complete when bees are under contract for pollination services to that crop, unless the application is made to prevent or control a threat to public and or animal health as determined by a state, tribal, authorized local health department, or vector control agency. So simply put, this label is stating that a grower can use the pesticide if the crop is not flowering, regardless of the fact that the crop is pollinated by bees. It is only when the crop is flowering and is pollinated by bees that a grower cannot use the pesticide. Now, I'm not sure if you think that this is a good enough response to the problem, but I certainly do not. This becomes especially true when one learns that, according to the Xerces Society, neonicotinoid pesticides can persist in soils for over 1,000 days. So even if a grower sprayed the pesticide when the crop wasn't flowering, this doesn't mean that the pesticide doesn't linger around and can affect pollinators later. Okay. Now that we know how these pesticides affect pollinators and what the policy that the EPA has put forth to mitigate these effects, why should we care? Many of you are aware that bees are extremely important to our lives and well-beings as humans. And just to put this into perspective for you, I'd like you to imagine a cheeseburger. So if bees went extinct, the only thing that would be left for human consumption would be the bun of this here cheeseburger. If you think about it, lettuce requires pollination by bees, so do tomatoes, onions, even the patty and the cheese of this burger rely on bees because cows eat grass. The only reason that the bun would be left is because wheat and grains do not require pollination in order to reproduce. And so this is a pretty sad image, and it becomes even more sad when you consider all of the foods that you love that require pollination by bees. As you can see, there's a clear reason why these pesticides should not just be mitigated, but banned from the use in the United States. Not only do they contribute to colony cluster, which is a precursor to bee extinction, this is a problem that could affect the foods that are grown in the United States. Without bees, the types of food that can be grown in the United States is significantly reduced. This is true. It is true that if these neonicotinoid pesticides were banned by the United States, the potential loss in profits generated by food production would be large. But when compared to the potential loss in profits due to bee extinction, one can see that this is a small sacrifice, a ban on these pesticides. This is why I urge you to contact your California senators and explain to them why pollinator protection is important to you. And in our district, those senators are Dianne Feinstein and Kamala Harris. In the end, I think that we all just want to be able to sit back and enjoy a cheeseburger without having to worry about it perhaps being our last one.